Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Happy new league year, everybody. I am John Schmeelk, joined by Matt Citak, taking your calls at 201-939-4513. All the deals that have been reported over the last few days are starting to go official. The Giants have a few in the books already. Brian Burns, officially traded for and signed to a nice contract extension. That's official. You have Jalen Mills, safety. He's official. And you have John Runyon, offensive lineman. He is official as well. And I would expect that more of these will trickle out as the day goes along. Stay tuned to Giants.com, the Giants Twitter account, all the social media platforms for all of that. If you have any interest, you can go to either the Giants Huddle podcast feed or YouTube to go check out my interview with Brian Burns we did late yesterday after he signed his contract. I thought it was fun to get to know him. Good dude. Big guy, too. A little bit wider and broader than I thought he would be, Matt. And that's where we should start, because that's the Giants, even though it's not a free agent signing, it's their big move of the free agency period. It's a trade and sign for like, it's not a sign and trade, it's a trade and sign type of move. So here's where I'll go with this. I think as two guys like me and you that love the draft, it rips my heart out to trade away the 39th pick just because I'm so excited about what you could do with that pick. You can get a first-round talent there. Rips my heart out. But here's the other half of it. It's a Pro Bowl caliber player that's made 2 Pro Bowls that plays at what you can argue is the second most important position in the sport after quarterback. Players like this do not become free agents. They either get franchised or they get tagged. We talk about that with wide receivers all the time, right?
Yep.
Defensive ends, it's even worse. Like, just look, remember when Khalil Mack got traded? Same deal. Does not become free agents. They end up getting traded. And you get a guy that's 25, is going to be 26. He's the same age as Dexter Lawrence, so both slightly older than Kayvon Thibodeau. And it's a piece at a premium spot that you got for only giving up a second-round pick. The contract's mammoth. I get that. But if you want to get a difference maker on defense, this is the type of thing you have to do. And the Giants were looking for a difference maker at edge to complement Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, and that's what they got.
Yeah, since the end of last season, they were one of the biggest, the buzz around the Giants was that they were going to add an edge rusher in some capacity. And, looking at mock drafts the last couple months, a lot of mock drafts had us taking an edge rusher with one of those 2 second-round picks.
Right.
So, obviously, the contract Brian Burns is going to be playing under just a little bit more than what a second-round pick would be making. But he's obviously more of a sure thing than picking a second-round rookie in the draft or, day 2, day 3 rookie, whatever. Now, he comes to the Giants. He joins Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence on the starting defensive line. Azeez Ojulari is still going to be on the team. Still, his playing time might see a little bit fewer snaps, obviously.
With his health history, maybe some fewer snaps might help him.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Him as a situational pass rusher
Bingo.
Could be ideal for him. And so I have been ecstatic about this trade since it was reported on Monday, because I think it genuinely gives the Giants one of the most talented defensive lines throughout the entire NFL. And led by 3 guys, as you mentioned, who are all young.
No.
Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Ojulari as well, at least for this upcoming season, his last year of his rookie deal. These are all young players that probably not even Dexter maybe, but these guys are still ascending. They may not have even reached their prime yet. I don't think we have seen the best of Brian Burns yet. I think we will now, especially surrounded by the other talented players, will help, give each of these guys more one-on-one matchups than they've probably seen previously. So yeah, could not be more excited about this trade.
And I think that's the hope, right? That now, while Burns' production has been enormously consistent, never had fewer than 7.5 sacks in a season, but just one season of double-digit sacks, right? 12.5, I believe, was a season high, right?
Yep.
So you hope now, in this environment, in this ecosystem, with those other players, throw in Shane Bowen's defense. And we talked about this. You go watch his defense on tape last year. It's guys lined up really wide and wide 9, to give your ends a chance to rush the passer. Joe Shane said at the Combine, you need guys that can rush the passer. This fills a need, and I think Burns is the exact type of player you want to fill that type of role. like Harold Landry, that type of guy that he had in Tennessee,
Yep.
right? Now, Landry wasn't able to stay healthy, unfortunately, for them. But that type of guy, and I think while sacks are largely, or in some part, out of the control of the defensive end sometimes because the quarterback gets the ball out, whatever, you can't help that. Pressures you can control a little bit more. I think your hope now that the production jumps a little bit. And I'll just say this, and Pearson, you can use this for the tease. If you watch the show in 2019 when the Giants drafted Dexter Lawrence, you know I love Brian Burns. I was excited for the Giants to draft him. I was crushed when he got picked, one pick before the Giants had in 2019. Now, Giants wound up with Dexter Lawrence. All good. Worked out. But I went back after the trade, and I rewatched Brian Burns' NFL tape. Fall in love all over again. The amount of pass rush moves, the speed rush, the hand usage, the chop, inside spin, outside spin, speed to power, long arm, pushes guys back on their rear end, pancakes them, right? Because they're expecting the speed rush and he brings the power. This guy has every pass rush move in the book, and he's fun to watch.
Yeah, and again, I know I'm going to keep on harping on this, but he's 25 years old.
Yeah.
He's so young. He's proven to be durable throughout the first 5 years of his NFL career. He stayed on the field, and, he hasn't had yet, a 15-plus sack season. As you mentioned, 12 and a half is his career high so far. But I saw this tweet NFL Game Day account put out on Twitter after the trade was first reported on Monday.
It's a good one.
This was Tuesday, that Brian Burns is one of 8 players in NFL history to have at least 7.5 sacks in their first 5 seasons. The names on that list: Reggie White, Hall of Famer; Derek Thomas, Hall of Famer; DeMarcus Ware, Hall of Famer; then Jared Allen, Aaron Donald, Ryan Kerrigan, and Yannick Ngakoue. Those are 7 very, very talented pass rushers. If the fact that Yannick Ngakoue, who has had a very successful NFL career, is probably at the bottom of that list in terms of careers, and he's still a great player, that's really telling. That shows you the start of the career that Brian Burns has had and what he could potentially, grow and develop into here in New York.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, and I think now we're seeing a vision for how Joe Schoen wants to build his defense, right? He wants to build it from up front out, from inside out, start with the front. There's still a lot of work to do in the secondary now.
Yep.
Jalen Mills came in. He's a guy that you can move around and put in a lot of different spots. Maybe he'll be starting next to Jason Pinnock. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Xavier McKinney signing elsewhere. He can play a little corner, play a little slot, but who's the other Giants' outside starting corner? Is Cordell Flock going to be their starting slot? Is he their starting outside corner? We don't know the answer to these questions yet. But it's pretty clear, simply based on where the Giants have put their resources, Matt, because a lot of the resources are in the defensive front now. That's how they want to get this defense. And by the way, if you look at how Buffalo built their defense, it should not be a surprise to anyone. The way Buffalo used high picks on, guys like Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa was a high pick for them. He was a second rounder. Who's the kid out of Miami that's on a rookie contract?
Rousseau?
Yep, Gregory Rousseau. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Daquan Jones is a good player there. So they've used a lot of high picks on defensive linemen. So that's clearly where the Giants are trying to focus in terms of how they build this defense.
Yeah, and I know we spoke about this, I don't know if it was last week, 2 weeks ago on the show, that last season the Giants had it was either the highest or within the top 3 highest percentage of blitzes in the league. Yeah. And yet the pressure rate was bottom 3 in the NFL. And when you look at Shane Bowen's defense in Tennessee, he doesn't really send, the high blitz rate. He doesn't really have a high blitz rate like Wink Martindale has been known to have throughout his NFL career. His defenses rely on the 4 front guys getting pressure. And I think that's why edge rusher was such a big necessity for the Giants this offseason. Yeah. And frankly, I don't think they could have addressed it in a better way. I mean, when NFL.com put out their list of the top 101 free agents last month, before all the franchise tags were placed on players, Brian Burns, I think, was number 3.
Behind what, Kirk and Chris Jones?
Yes.
That sounds right.
And maybe he was 4 with Josh Allen on the Jaguars being up there as well, who obviously got the franchise tag, is now staying in Jacksonville. But if he had hit the open market, he would have been one of, if not the most sought after free agent in the entire league.
And the second round pick is the penalty you pay to keeping him from hitting the open market.
Yes.
That's how you get him.
Yes. And if the Giants hadn't made this trade, I'm sure there would have been other teams lining up to do the same exact trade.
2 years ago, the Rams offered reportedly 2 first-round picks for him.
Yep. And two first and a second, I believe.
Yeah, I think that was the report.
And that was like a year ago.
Correct.
A year and a half ago.
And by the way, I also understand the move for Carolina. If you go back and I get why Carolina fans would be annoyed if that's an offer you passed on a year ago. I get that. I actually like, and I don't want to go on a little sideways here, but I think the Panthers, what they've done to try to make the situation around Bryce Young a lot better, I think they've done a nice job. They've signed 2 starting guards. They trade for Deontay Johnson. They don't have a first-round pick, but they get a second rounder. So they have 2 picks in the first 7 picks of the second round. Yep. So they're going to be able to pick 1 or 2 wide receivers if they like to help Bryce Young out. So I think they're doing the best they can to try to make the environment around Bryce Young a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, they will very likely still have some very talented options at wide receiver with the 33rd pick.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Deontay Johnson's good. Like, he's a good receiver.
Oh yeah. I know. A lot of people will just look at the touchdown numbers from 2 years ago. He only had a handful last year, but he's a very talented wide receiver. But they will be able to get another very talented wide receiver at the 33rd pick. Let's not forget, it was only a couple years ago that T. Higgins was selected 33rd overall by the Bengals, and now, I mean, he's actually there's the rumor reports out there that the Bengals might look to trade him, and the first team on the list could be the Panthers with one of those 2 second-round picks now to offer Cincinnati. I don't know if that'll be enough, but that's a lot of buzz. But yeah, they will be able to get some very talented players with both of their second-round picks. I saw that they are one of the teams reportedly interested in bringing in Jadeveon Clowney, I guess, as the Brian Burns replacement.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, look, the Panthers they're in the situation that they're in. They traded a lot of picks last year to move up for Bryce Young, but given the circumstances, I think the GM's doing a pretty good job to try to kind of get them out of the hole, so to speak, that they got put in with the deal last year.
I don't believe the Justin Jefferson rumors for a second, by the way, just for the not even for a nanosecond.
No, I mean, if you're Minnesota, why in the world would you trade him?
And by the way, if you're Cincinnati, knowing the way the Bengals operate, they're going to pay Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson a combined $70 million a year, because that's what it's going to cost. It's $35 million for each of them.
Yeah, with Joe Burrow already making
50.
Yeah.
So that's literally $120 million for 3 players with no linemen involved. So I think people need to use their noodles a little bit on that one. I'd be very surprised if that.
For fantasy football purposes, it's nice to think about Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and Justin
Joe Burrow
Jefferson.
Owners will be pumped. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson owners, maybe not so much, because then the ball gets spread out a little bit more and the target rate goes down a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
See, I need Tino here to give the fantasy football expertise and give us the lowdown on fantasy impact. All right, a couple other things. Matt, we'll go back and forth here, just kind of takeaways on what's going on here. I had a chance to talk to John Runyon today. That interview will be going up a little bit later on YouTube. Said they did not talk about which guard position he'd play, right guard or left guard. Basically, he said that I'm good playing either. He's played right guard the last 2 years. Before that, he played on the left side his whole career. So he says, I'm good either side, and I think the Giants are leaving some flexibility there to get their best 5 on the field, which means, all right, well, maybe left guard or right guard for Runyon, depending on where that other guard feels more comfortable playing, which is a great situation to be in, to have a guy that can be flexible like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, as we saw last year with all the injuries across the offensive line, guys that can play multiple positions are so valuable. So valuable, and especially guys that can play multiple positions that, at least up to this point in their career, have proven to be extremely durable. Yeah, I believe he hasn't missed a game in his NFL career. He's had, last year he was on the field 928 snaps, over 1,000 snaps the 2 years prior to that. The guy stays on the field, and the most sacks he's given up in a season with those, 1,000 snaps, 2 years ago he gave up 3 sacks.
Yeah.
Last year he gave up 2. 2021 he gave up 2, according to Pro Football Focus.
And that's his strength. I think his strength is in pass pro.
Yeah.
He's not your, DJ, to give Giant fans a frame of reference, DJ Fluker-esque, grinding, mauling, destroy people with his physicality type of guy. Remember, he was an offensive tackle at Michigan. He was their starting left tackle.
Yep.
So he's a little taller than most guards, but he's not like that classic fire hydrant build, right? He's built more like a tackle. Though meeting him today, he was pretty broad. But he's not like your mauling type. But his pass protection strong. And the one thing I really like watching him on tape, Matt, when I've watched him the last few days, he's really aware as a player. You can tell he's smart and he studies. Mm-hmm. And we've talked so much the last couple years, 10 years, about how the Giants have struggled with twists and stunts and movements. When that dude's in there, his head is on a swivel at all times. And you can see him anticipate guys coming around, defensive linemen running those games, right? And you can see him anticipating that. So I think in pass pro, he's going to be pretty darn good right away. And I feel pretty confident that he'll be an upgrade in terms of pass pro at the guard spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that his first 2 seasons of seeing extended action, he was blocking for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, obviously, any offensive lineman is going to block for whoever it is that's playing quarterback. But when you have a future Hall of Famer behind you, I feel like it just keeps the antenna up just a little bit more. You're trying a little bit, maybe giving that tiny bit extra effort to make sure your future Hall of Fame quarterback does not get sacked.
And learning from Rodgers, too, right?
Exactly. Learning from him as well. It's huge. And speaking of learning and just his general football IQ, I think it's extremely beneficial that his dad is a longtime NFL offensive lineman who Giants fans might remember all of his, kind of famous matchups going against Michael Strahan. The two of them were kind of enemies with each other.
Nemesi? Is it Nemesi? I think it might be Nemesi. Sure. Nemesis? No.
But Runyon Sr. was with the Eagles, I believe it was for 9 seasons.
I talked to John about that today. I think he said 2000 to 2008, I believe.
Okay, so 9 seasons. Strahan was there for all but the last one.
Yep.
And, I mean, the two of them, while they were enemies on the field, appear to be, I don't want to say good friends, but at least friendly off the field.
And he's a South Jersey guy, too.
Yeah, so much so that, as John Runyon said during his press conference today, Michael Strahan invited the entire Runyon family to his Hall of Fame induction speech in Canton.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the entire family. And Strahan even mentioned John Runyon in his speech, calling him the greatest player that he ever had to go up against. So I think having a father who played, almost 15 years in the NFL, just another little thing that is just going to help John Runyon Jr. throughout his NFL career, and especially here.
Agree. I have not been on since all these signings happened, so I apologize, but I'm going to touch on a couple more real quick. Jermaine Illuminor is not official yet. That is something that's still according to reports. When that becomes official, we'll, of course, let you know. It's funny. I was listening to the Athletic Football Show. Nate Tice and Robert Mays do a great job with that. And they went through the numbers. There is no other offensive tackle in the league that makes the same amount of money per year as Illuminor. The way he slots in, just above, the lower-end swing guys, but just below, the starting, lower-end starting guys, which I thought was interesting. And I think it's informative to how he fits and can be used by the Giants, right? Because is he a swing tackle? Maybe. Could he be a starting guard? Maybe. How is he going to fit in? And I think his versatility is useful. He's played a lot more tackle than guard, almost 4 times the number of snaps at tackle versus guard. Might even be 5 times. And the last 2 years, he's been the starting right tackle with Giants offensive line coach Carmen Brasillo in Las Vegas. He's been a solid pass protector. He's done a nice job out there. Big, long guy. Moves his feet pretty well. Not super duper athletic as opposed to some of these guys that, tested ridiculous at the combine and stuff like that. But I think he gets his hands in a good place. He seems to be a pretty smart guy. His story coming from England, becoming, his first football game was the Giants-Dolphins game in 2007. It's a great story, but I think purely from a football standpoint, Matt, he gives you protection on the right tackle spot for Evan Neal. He gives you ability to play guard. And much like I mentioned with Runyon, you want to get your best 5 linemen on the field wherever they're set up, right?
Yes.
And now you have 2 guys in Illuminor and Runyon. Runyon's a 2-position guy, right guard, left guard. Illuminor is a 4-position guy. He's played right tackle. He's played left tackle. Not that you would want him there, but that means Andrew Thomas isn't there. He's played right guard. He's played left guard. So more right guard than left. But he's a guy that's played all these different spots. He's going to figure out a way to get on the field and be a very useful player for the Giants in one way, shape, or form.
100%. I mean, I'm just looking at his stats, both from this past season and his NFL career. This past season, most of his snaps were at right tackle, but he did play some left tackle. Gave up 6 sacks on the year, but all of them came in 3 different games. He had a 2-game stretch against the Steelers and the Chargers, who, off the top of my head, that's TJ Watt, then Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack.
I watched those 2 games in prep for this. TJ Watt and Khalil Mack gave him some issues.
Okay.
With their speed, by the way. And then if you do see him get beat sometimes, it's with the super speedy athletic guys around the edge. He's very good not letting guys get inside of him. He doesn't get power rushed or bull rushed. If he gets beat, it's usually with speed outside.
Yeah. But, I mean, those 2 guys are two of the best pass rushers in the NFL.
They're pretty good. Same thing with Runyon, by the way. When you saw him lose, it was to Chris Jones, it was to Aaron Donald, it was to Osa Digizua, some of the best defensive tackles in the league.
And then the other 16 games, he gave up 1 sack. Week 18. Those first 2 were weeks 3 and 4. He gave up the 5 sacks total. Didn't give up a sack again until the final game of the season against the Broncos.
No.
He definitely provides some great versatility. As you said, most of his snaps have been at right tackle, but he has over 400 snaps at left tackle, over 500 snaps at right guard, including the 2021 season where he exclusively played at right guard for the Raiders, didn't give up a single sack, playing 266 snaps at right guard.
It's about 3 games worth, give or take. 3.5.
Yeah. So he provides great versatility. He's a very solid pass protector. And one of the things that I've just been, I guess, the happiest to sort of see the last couple of days since he agreed to the deal. I don't know if for those of you who don't follow him on Twitter, I would highly recommend giving him a follow.
He seems so excited.
I can't remember a player seeming so genuinely happy to become a New York Giant. He has so many tweets about how, the Giants was the Giants Dolphins game in London 2007 was the first game he ever went to. That he's going to look amazing in a Giants blue jersey, that his daughter is going to look amazing in a Giants blue jersey. The guy is so excited to be here. And, I mean, as a Giants fan and employee, I mean, that just makes me happy to see.
I'm excited to have a British accent in the locker room. That's really the thing that's most important to me. For people that listen to the show, I love accents. I get very excited about accents. I cannot wait for the Jermaine Illuminor British accent to be in that locker room. It's fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait. All right, real quick. I'll hit one more and then we'll get out and we'll take your calls here. Devin Singletary, I just thought really solid signing as somebody we talked about heading into free agency as a guy that made sense given the connections to Dable and Shane. I was watching his tape again yesterday, and man, he is elusive. He still makes guys miss consistently in space and even in little phone booths in the middle of the line. He lacks that really big burst and top speed to run away from people. You can look at his combine time. I think it was a 4.61 or something like that, right? Maybe not even 4.7. So he lacks that top end speed, but in those short areas, Matt, he is extremely elusive. And I think it shows in the efficiency of his rushing game over the course of his career. He's well over 4 yards per carry in every one of his years.
Yeah, 4.6 yards per carry for his NFL career on 888 rush attempts. And he's never had a season below 4.2 yards per carry. He's incredibly consistent. And I know, a lot of people in, the media on Twitter like to make jokes that the Giants just the last 2 seasons have just been bringing all the Buffalo Bills to New York, to East Rutherford. But Brian Dable knows what he's getting in Devin Singletary. They spent multiple seasons, 3 seasons together. He wouldn't have brought him here unless he liked what he saw in those 3 years. I would think both on the field and off the field.
Yeah.
He's an efficient runner, as you said, and he's also been a pretty solid pass catcher. I mean, if you look at his receiving numbers throughout his career, he doesn't have the same reception numbers as Saquon had. However, 175 receptions total over the last 5 years for over 1,100 yards. He can catch the football. He's got pretty good hands. I'm excited about this. He also, the last 4 seasons, has missed 1 game.
Yeah. Adorable.
Again, that's going to be a common theme with all the guys that the Giants have officially signed, the reported signings. If you look at all of their games missed because of injury, it's very small numbers.
Dependable,
exactly. Smart, tough, dependable. We're really seeing that this offseason.
And I'll just say this before we get to your calls here. We talked a lot. I know Giant fans, some of you guys are really upset about Saquon Barkley leaving and Xavier McKinney leaving. Totally get it. But I think Len, who called on Monday, we talked about this. I talked about the concept of opportunity cost, right? Well, it's not just not signing those guys. It's then, well, then what do you do with the money that you don't use on those guys? Well, you want to add up Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney's reported average per year? You know what that equals? Brian Burns. Do you want Brian Burns on the team? To play a premium position that's 25 years old? Or would you rather re-sign Barkley and McKinney? Because you can't have both. That was your choice. And given the value of those positions, the age of the players, and some of the history of what happens to guys at certain positions after they get to a certain age, to me, I think that's the right decision.
I agree completely. Because we also don't know if one or two of those guys were both kept. I don't know if they then have the money to also sign the 2 offensive linemen that we were just discussing.
And those were essential signings.
Yes.
You had to bring in 2 offensive linemen that can start for you.
It was very clear that going into the offseason, improving the offensive line was top priority, number one. And it showed. The first day, they agreed to deals with 2 different guys, from bringing in from the outside, 2 guys that you think are going to start somewhere on the line. Very solid veteran guys. And if 2-6 and McKinney were kept, I don't know if both of those guys would have been signed.
Right. And I'll say this too. Don't have any ill will towards those 2 guys. They found really good contracts. And I get you're upset he went to Philadelphia. I get it. Don't like the Eagles. Understand. But to get that type of contract as a running back, go to I know you don't want to hear this either, good organization and a good team. And Xavier McKinney broke the bank. I mean, he's at the top of the safety market. Good for him.
Good for both of them.
Good for both of them. And we wish them both luck. They're good players and they're good dudes. Hopefully that they succeed where they end up. And I'm happy for both of them.
Maybe just not so much success when they're playing the Giants.
Good addendum, Matt. See, that's why he edits stuff upstairs. He takes my chicken scratch with nonsense in there, and then he adds little things like that to add really good context to it, which is good. 201-939-4513. I mentioned this before, guys. Go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. If you're not on there right now, go and do it, because we got interviews with all of these new additions coming up. Brian Burns' interview is already up there. We're interviewing a bunch of the guys today. I already talked to Jalen Mills. I already talked to John Runyon. They're not up there yet. They will be shortly. So make sure you go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. All those interviews will be up there. Go check it out. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Giants.com/podcast, or go to the Giants mobile app. All right, let's go to Marty in Manahawkin. He will lead us off today. Marty.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
T. Higgins, there's a lot of talk about him out there, possibly being traded. I was just wondering if is he an X?
Yes.
Or a Y?
He's an X. He is a true big X wide receiver.
Yeah, and what do you think it would take? What do you think it would take to pry him away from there if they do let him go?
Marty, here's the problem. Could the Giants summon the draft capital to make a trade like that? Sure. They now have contracts on the book for $25 million or more, at least according to reports. The Giants do not make any of that official. For big money contracts to Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, and Brian Burns. If you trade for T. Higgins, you know what type of contract he wants?
Big
that
one.
type of contract. I don't think you can afford, and Matt, correct, both of us look at the cap and stuff like that. It's very hard to have 4 $25 million a year plus players, plus a quarterback that's counting a lot of money on your cap. It just becomes very difficult to manage the roster once you make a move like that.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example, I think, is to look at exactly what the Los Angeles Chargers are going through right now.
Bingo.
With,
perfect.
They had 4 very talented veteran players in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa. And all week, everyone's been waiting for them to, release or trade 1, 2, maybe even 3 of those guys. We already saw Mike Williams get traded.
And they had to let Austin Eckler go too, right?
They had to let Eckler go. So now it's been reported that Khalil Mack restructured his deal to stay, but there's still question marks of whether or not they'll be able to keep Joey Bosa and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, they're like barely cap compliant.
Yeah, because they have Justin Herbert now with his big contract. So, is there potentially a way to squeeze the contract that T. Higgins is probably looking for under the salary cap for the Giants for this upcoming season? I'm sure there is some way to do it, but since he took over, Joe Schoen has been very clear that he wants to keep the Giants in a healthy cap situation as much as possible. Every season, he would like the team to be in a healthy cap situation. Even when it comes to restructuring some of the Giants' own players, Joe Schoen has said that, they try to wait until the last possible moment, before they have to do it in order to make more roster moves.
And if you look at and again, the Giants do not comment on this or anything, it's not official, but if you look at some of the reported structure of the Brian Burns contract, it's what you call a flat contract, which means it's not like you have some $60 million cap hit in the 4th or 5th year of the deal. It's flat, as in the cap numbers on each year are very close to each other without giving actual numbers, which gives you the flexibility later on to renegotiate and turn some of that thing, and same thing with the Dexter contract and the Andrew Thomas contract. So the reason you structure them that way, Marty, is so when you're ready to really make your run and you think you're a Super Bowl contender, that's when you start restructuring the contract. If you're restructuring and you're still not a very good team yet, then all of a sudden when you need to try to make those couple moves to get over the top, your flexibility's gone. And then you're kind of trapped. So that's why adding a guy like Higgins, I think, at this point, just from a salary and team building standpoint, would be pretty tough.
I also don't know what draft picks the Giants could even trade them at this point, because
they have a
the
second
6th
rounder.
overall pick, obviously way too high. And I would think that they'd probably get more than the 47th pick for T. Higgins.
Like a 2 this year and a 3 next year, something like that.
Maybe something like that. But I think the Giants are also sort of counting on whoever that player that they get at 47 being not only a solid contributor right away, but someone who's going to come in on a rookie second round pick contract.
And in such a great wide receiver class where you can get one either in the top 10 or with that pick at 47, you could get a cheaper option, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we'd be better off in the draft than with a wide receiver at this point.
Good place to be.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Marty.
Thanks for taking my question.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Marty.
All right, James in Georgia, I gave you dispensation for a second call this week, so do me a favor, get to your main point. Let's get 1 point in, and I want to make sure we get everybody else in today. James, what's going on?
None, Matt. Thanks for letting me in on the second time. Well, 1 point that I guess I'm trying to make is it's been a good free agency so far. Sad about the Barkley thing, but when you break all the different moves down, like y'all were talking about, y'all hit on a lot of my points, but when you replace Barkley at the position with Singletary for half the money, that's like a no-brainer.
Less than half.
That's a good business move. Anybody would do that, So not mad at that anymore. That eased the blow on that. And we've been filling a lot of holes. I think we got to get to getting. Well, the point I wanted to make is, and sometimes I call about kind of crazy things, but is it impossible? And what would the situation look like if we were to trade Jones during free agency? You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Would that totally destroy our cap, or
yes,
tied to him for the rest of his contract? And I think we have to bring in one more quarterback. I think Paul was hitting on it, and I was saying this to somebody the other day. We have to bring in one more quarterback just to have healthy bodies through camp and through training camp and things like that. And I'll take the rest off the air.
Yeah, James, I agree. I think you want to have 3 guys throwing in spring practice and OTAs, and right now the Giants just have 2. So I agree. I think at some point, Matt, we'll see a third quarterback added in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a veteran or somebody in the draft.
Yeah. Well, Tommy DeVito is still under contract, but
oh, that's right. That's the third. I'm sorry, you're correct about that.
But I do think there will be.
But Jones isn't healthy enough to throw in the spring.
Yeah,
that's my point. So they only have 2 healthy
for the
arms.
spring,
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. 100%. I think they will in some capacity. And again, don't know if it'll be another veteran, a rookie early in the draft, a day 2 or day 3 pick. That we don't know, but in some capacity, I believe they will bring in another arm. Yes.
And again, based on what's on like over the cap and spot track and stuff, you would have more than $20 million be accelerating in if you make some kind of a trade that he's talking about with Daniel, and then that would just demolish your cap situation.
I don't know if a trade
No.
is too likely.
Guys, Daniel, what happened in the last 2 weeks that you would think Daniel's not going to be your starter in week 1? Like, I don't understand. And Joe Shane has been pretty clear about saying that. Again, that doesn't mean you don't add somebody in the draft. You could even draft somebody high if you wanted to. But based on how that contract was structured, there's more flexibility after this season in terms of how that thing is set up, and you saw the reports about that. But I don't think it does you much good to trade him now. You're not going to get anything back for him because the base salary is so big, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure how that would work with the base salary, if that would move to the new team, and then the cap would. I'm not sure how that would work exactly, how that base salary is structured in terms of bonuses, but I just think I don't think a trade for Jones is even something that they would talk about, unless you end up drafting somebody super early that you think could start right away with him, maybe, whatever. But I just don't think that's something that's even on the minds of people at the current time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've said this before. I spend a lot of time on NFL Twitter, mainly patrolling things for Giants.com, but I have not seen anything from anyone indicating that there's any sort of possibility of a Daniel Jones trade.
Correct.
So
that's just the way it is, and that's kind of where we're at. 201-939-4513, and again, I don't think they should. I don't think it makes any sense based on where they are right now.
I mean, Joe Shane said multiple times, if healthy, Daniel Jones will be the starter week 1.
Correct. Cliff in New York. He's up next. Hi, Cliff.
Hey, guys. Great stuff. Love all the signings. Great progress moving forward. I got a couple of questions about the needs for the ex-receiver and the elite internal offensive lineman.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Runyon and hopefully Illuminor also, I'd like to know, are those two additions more of an upgrade than the additions we got 2 years ago with Feliciano and Glowinski?
I would think, I think they're better players than Feliciano were when he got here. If you just look at the size of the contract, I think that'll tell you that. And I think Runyon is probably a bit of a better player than what Glowinski was when he got here, if you just look in terms of the size of the contracts that they signed. Now, there's been a lot of inflation at that position over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, so it's hard to compare apples to apples there just because of the way the league has gone. Cliff, I would call both guys solid, dependable starters. I think that's a good way to describe them. Matt, you think that's fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was hoping. Now, that's a huge step moving forward, obviously, needs no explanation. But to be a championship team, I think we still need an elite guard. And just like you said, the teams that already have one, re-sign them. So if we're going to get our Landon Dickerson, I'm hearing that there's enough talent at that position to do it in the second round. But I'm a little nervous about only having 1 second-round pick now, and I'm still interested in getting the X. So here's what I'm thinking: if you can't have Odunze, and you want a guy of that body type, and I think you need that. I don't think everybody can be 5'8" and 175.
Well, now keep in mind, Malik Neighbors is 6'1", like 205 pounds. Like, he's not a small guy. He's a good-sized wide receiver. Malik Neighbors.
Right. Okay. So Neighbors. All right. So Neighbors is good size. I didn't think of that. I thought of somebody 6 feet.
Yeah, Neighbors is, I think, 6 foot 1/2 inch and around 205 pounds. I think is what he measured at, right? Something like that.
Sounds right.
And Odunze is 6'4".
6'3.5", I think.
Like 215.
215. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Well, that gets to the heart of the matter. How much of a difference does it make when you're that much bigger than the cornerbacks and the safeties when you go deep, and or even across the middle? And if so, is there a big drop off from Neighbors and Odunze for trading down so we can get back a second round pick just to be sure of getting the elite guard in the second round? In other words,
well, first of all, I'm not sure you're getting an elite guard in the second round. I think you're getting a guard. I'm not sure you're getting an elite guard, because there'll be 3 guys I would consider elite interior offensive linemen that'll go, but they'll be long gone by 47.
And you think they'll be gone maybe even in the first round?
Yeah, Jackson Powers-Johnson, who's a guard-center combo, he's going to be gone. Graham Barton, who's a guard-center combo from Duke, he's going to be gone by then. And then I'll throw, and I consider him a tackle, but 2 guys that have tackle guard flex is Troy Fautanu from Washington and then Jordan Morgan from Arizona, who some people think could end up being a guard. All 4 of those guys are going to be long gone by the time the Giants, I think, frankly, even picked at 39 if they still had that pick. I think all 4 of those guys will be gone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Maybe Barton could get there, maybe, but I think probably gone by 39.
I've seen him growing. Originally, people thought, first half of the second round. Now, what I've been seeing in mock drafts and stuff is towards the end of the first round. I don't know if he's making it to round 2.
Keep an eye on the Cowboys for him. Jane Slater mentioned his name the other day during the free agency frenzy on NFL Network, and guys tend to get linked to Dallas early in the draft process, and it sticks. I feel like someone down there might have some loose lips, so I would not be surprised if Barton wound up with Dallas.
And just keep in mind when you're talking about, second round guards, Will Hernandez was selected with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round in 2018 at guard.
Yep.
And I don't know if anyone's calling him an elite guard or, above average.
Right now, Cliff, you can get a guy like Cooper Beebe with that 2nd round pick. I think he's a really solid player. I'm trying to think of the other guards. I'm such in free agency mode right now. I have to recalibrate the draft mode here and turn my brain back off.
I'm thinking of Landon Dickerson being a 2nd round pick. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, remember he only dropped to the 2nd round too because he was coming off a torn ACL and he had injury issues.
Well, still he was there.
Yep.
Look, every year you see guys end up dropping to end of day 2, even day 3, that within a year or two end up becoming very good NFL starters. Creed Humphrey was a 3rd round pick. He's potentially the best center in the NFL now.
Second round. I think late
round?
2nd, right?
Late 2nd, early 3rd.
Yeah, he's awesome. Creed Humphrey's awesome.
The other was it Trey Smith?
Trey Smith, he was 6th round pick.
6th round pick.
He's guard,
the Chargers with was Jamari
Salyer. Yep.
He was I believe a 5th round pick. Like, guys are going to end up going on day 3.
I loved him too.
Lineman.
I don't know why he dropped as far as he did Salyer. I thought he was a really good
at least with Smith,
player.
there was the potential medical concern.
Correct.
Which have proven, at least so far, to not be an actual concern. But every year you see guys drop to day 3 on the interior offensive line who very quickly prove to be very solid, starting NFL offensive line.
You know who else I like too as a guard, Cliff, in round 2? Christian Haynes out of UConn. I think he's a pretty darn good player. That's another guy we'll keep an eye on.
And what about the Michigan guy?
Zach Zinter?
I know he's coming off the injury.
I'm not
but...
as high on him.
Really?
Yeah, I have to rewatch his tape. I have not gone through my guards in full yet. But on first look, I liked Haynes and I liked Beebe more than I liked him.
Well, for maybe the guard, if we trade down in the 1st round, maybe we take the guard then and we go the ex-receiver in the 2nd round because from what I've seen, suffering against Dallas and Philly, it's not like we're lacking 5 offensive linemen. It's just like the guard is really the missing piece. And no disrespect to Runyon, but I'm looking for them to draft somebody that can push him. And Illuminor if he ends up being a guard.
I got you, Cliff. Appreciate the call, my man. Thank you for the call. But look, I just will caution this like I do for every draft class. You do not draft positions. You draft players. So you can say that we need a guard. That's great. Pick the best guy. All right? The Giants are not in this. We need to fix one hole and then we're Super Bowl champions type of mode here, right? You want to load the team with as many really good players, preferably at the really important positions, as you possibly can. So if you get to a spot and you like a guard, but he's not as good as a player at a different position, that's maybe even a more valuable position than guard, though. Now with the guard salaries going up the way they are, that's getting up there as like the 5th or 6th biggest spot in terms of salary, which is crazy. But pick the best guy. Do not reach for need in the draft. That's how you make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, some years you get lucky where the best player available matches with one of your biggest needs.
Which could be the guy you're looking at right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at Roma Dunze. He's definitely going to be in that conversation. I mean, again, this year, at least with the 1st round pick, some of the Giants' needs does potentially line up with the guys that people think will be going in that area between the wide receivers, potentially one of the offensive tackles, or maybe even, the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Or potentially someone like Brock Bowers. So again, it's ideal when needs match up with best player available, but most of the time it doesn't. You don't get that lucky. And I agree with you. You gotta unless you're a team that is on the brink of being, Super Bowl contender or is in it every year and you're just trying to get that last piece to go over the top, you gotta just take the best player available.
Have to. 100% with you. I have not heard from Bash in Ohio in what feels like 3 years. He used to be a regular. Bash, I have not heard from you in forever, man. What's going on?
How we doing, John?
We're good.
Long time no hear. I know.
Hey, don't be. I'm not calling you. You're not calling me, bro.
I know. It's just this free agency kicked in, and I'm like, let me call John and see what's going on up there.
Yeah, man.
I was just listening to I was listening. I'm like, let me call up. But yeah, I wanted to call. I think we're doing a great job as far as the thing. I love the trade with Brian Burns coming to the Giants with the 2nd and the 5th for next year is great. I think we get a 5th back next year. We swap 5ths is at the final trade. I think we gave them the 2nd and we swapped 5ths for next year with them.
We swapped 5ths this year, and we also gave them a conditional 5th-round pick in next year's draft.
Do you know what the condition is on that?
I do not.
Neither do I. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask as far as Brian Burns fitting in with the scheme as far as with Tibbs and Dex, and I was Larry back in the day with Spags back then as far as the NASCAR defense, as far as probably on third down, having all 4 of them on the line. Is that something Shane does, or loses with having all 4 of those guys on the line, like we did with Tuck and OC and Strahan, and then with JPP, OC and Tuck as far as
Bash, 3rd and long, I could see Thibodeau, Ojulari, Burns, and Dexter all being on the field at the same time. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. That would be exciting as far as seeing them 4. And I was listening the other day, one more question, I'll get off the line as far as that. I know you and Paul was talking the other day about the quarterbacks, and he brought up Mason Rudolph as far as you say you have 5 guys that you would think. What do you think about the Drew Lock signing as far as the backup with Drew Lock?
Yeah, we did not mention Drew Lock, Bash. Thanks for the question. Appreciate the call, man. Don't be a stranger, Bash. Always good to hear from you, my man. I think the Drew Lock signing is fine. I think he's not, and if you look at just from what the reported contracts are, it's not the upper echelon backup, but it's that next group down. And I think what I like about Drew Lock is that he's been through a lot in the NFL, right? And I like these guys that get brought in, they're highly touted, and, failing early is okay. You learn stuff from failure. You figure things out. You get better. And I think what we saw when Drew Lock had to play for the Seahawks last year is that he has become a better quarterback than what he was early in his Denver tenure. We saw that great fourth quarter comeback against the against the Eagles on Monday Night Football, if I recall. And I think he's a guy that's become a better quarterback. He's improved. He's got a big arm. I think he's very much in the same style group as Daniel Jones. Not as mobile as Daniel, but in terms of being a big-bodied, big-armed quarterback, I think they fit into the same group there. And I think he's a guy that you feel good if Daniel goes down. Can you win football games with Drew Lock coming in as your starter? And I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a very solid backup quarterback. He's still young. He was in the same draft as Daniel Jones, 2019. He was a 2nd-round pick. As you said, he's got a big arm. And that, I think, is something, if pushed into action, I would love to see him, throwing deep balls to Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton 40 yards down the field.
We can screen one more, Pearson, by the way, because Jeff's usually quick.
And yeah, I mean, look, if you look at his career numbers, he has some rushing ability. It's not like he's a pure pocket passer. In the one season that he started 13 games for the Broncos back in 2020, 44 rushes for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not, those aren't Lamar Jackson numbers, obviously, but solid numbers. He's athletic. Overall, again, as you said, with the reported numbers, he's kind of in the middle. I would say even slightly towards the lower half of what a lot of the backup quarterbacks signed for this offseason. I think it's a solid signing.
Agreed.
I mean, again, is
it a guy, if Daniel Jones gets hurt, you say, all right, this guy can win a game for us?
Yes, he can lead the offense. I would have confidence that he can go out there and run the offense.
And not just be a passenger. Like, he has the physical ability where he can make a couple of big-time throws here or there to make plays for you, like he did at the end of that game against the Eagles for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I was going to say that the game-winning touchdown in that game, I was watching it live. That was an amazing throw, I believe, to Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I mean, again, he's a guy that's shown that he's been there. He can handle the pressure. I mean, in the 2 games he started for the Seahawks this past season, the first game against a very good 49ers defense, completed 71% of his passes for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then a week later was the Eagles game where he completed 2/3 of his passes for just over 200 yards and a touchdown.
We have a trade. The Falcons have traded Desmond Ridder to the Arizona Cardinals for Rondell Moore. The
Rondell
rare
Moore.
player-for-player trade, which you don't see very often in the NFL.
No, you don't.
I like that. Marquise Brown, by the way, still has not been signed as far as I could tell, right?
Yeah, he is now, since Calvin Ridley agreed to the deal last night.
Tennessee, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Kind of came out of nowhere. Everyone thought,
That's a nice combination. Ridley with Hopkins
yeah. And Will Levis, talk about another strong-armed quarterback.
and Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. That's a nice little offense right there.
Yeah,
They got to help the offensive line a little bit.
they do.
And that
Which-
might point to them picking an offensive lineman in the draft now.
Exactly what I was going to say. For those that, are calling or wanting the Giants to potentially move down in the first round, at least a couple of picks, the 7th pick at least looks like now, I would think that they would lean more towards the offensive lineman than the wide receivers.
Yeah.
You never know what a front office is thinking, but that seems to be the general consensus for a lot of the, big draft analysts since the signing.
It was
last
kind of
night.
tackle or wide receiver, and I think you have to lean tackle a little bit. All right, we'll squeeze in 2 more calls. Jeff in Rhode Island. Jeff, what's up, buddy? Good to talk to you.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
We're good.
Good.
I had called. I was sitting here trying to figure out who the 4th piece of our new fearsome foursome was going to be. And I heard Ojolari's name mentioned, so I kind of forgot about him because he's never on the field.
Well, again, and remember, Jeff, that would just be on third downs. On early downs, I would imagine right now, if you're lining up with a 4-man front on 1st and 10 on opening day, it would be probably Nacho, right? That would be the second defensive tackle.
Right now, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I think so.
Nacho, huh? Wow. Okay.
You don't like nachos, Jeff?
I'm not big on nachos, thank you. Do you think we might do something else before the draft in regard to maybe a little more safety help or cornerback help?
Yeah, corner. I would say if I had to guess, I think corner would be a position, Matt, where I think they'd still be looking to add somebody, right?
I mean, I think both of those positions in the secondary, they would, or at least going to look at adding some sort of veteran over the next month. I mean, Jalen Mills is now in the fold. He kind of is a jack of all trades, can kind of play all over the secondary, but I would imagine that he will not be the last, secondary free agent brought in before the start of the draft.
I'm sure there's going to be many other people looked at before the season starts, of course. Okay, then. Well, I got to say, I'm so far so good. I think with the free agency stuff, I'm very pleased so far.
Good, Jeff. Appreciate the call, my man. All right, let's wrap things up with James in Jersey City. James, what's going on, bud?
The caller before me kind of hit on my point. Hi, guys.
What's up?
One of the things that I wanted to know, the loss of Alshon Robinson, I think that's going to be a big hit to us. Especially when it comes on the 1st and 2nd, stopping the run.
No, you're right about that, James. He was an excellent run stopper. Really good run stopper. Mm-hmm.
So do you see the Giants trying to fill that void maybe in the draft or maybe get a veteran free agent towards, the beginning of the season?
That's a good question.
And I'll take that off the air.
Nah, good question, James. I mean, they do have Nacho here, and I think he supposedly is supposed to fit that same type of role, right? He's not a pass rusher. He's a guy that can stop the run. That was his strength when he got here.
Yep.
So I think that's why he's here. But would it surprise me if I'm trying to think? Ryder Anderson has a reserve future contract, right? He's here, a defensive tackle.
Jordan Riley.
Oh yeah, that's right. Big Jordan Riley. I forgot about him.
Davidson.
That's right.
DJ Davidson's he's under contract.
And those
this
are 2
upcoming
guys
season.
that are more run stuffer than pass rusher. So I think I totally forgot about those 2 young guys. Yes, I think those would be. I'm with you. I think those are the guys that would compete for that spot. Could you add a league vet minimum defensive tackle at some point? Sure, but I'd be more concerned with trying to get a defensive tackle that can rush the passer a little bit out of the 3 technique than necessarily a run stopper, given the other guys they have.
Yeah, and I mean the draft again. You and I have spoken about this off of the air. I mentioned the other day that in the 2nd round, that could be a spot. Again, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to one position in a certain draft slot, but
Give the guy you like.
But there are some.
Give the guy you like.
You know who I'm going to say.
Well, the fans don't though.
Florida State's Braden, was it Fisk?
Fisk.
I like him a lot. As you mentioned to me the other day, more of the pass rusher from the interior than
good,
a
though.
run stopper. And since our conversation the other day, I've dove in to find a potential other few guys. I like the 2 Texas interior linemen. Well, one of them was it Byron Murphy?
Yeah, he's gonna go
He's
early.
gonna go in the first round, but Devondre Sweat.
Yeah, if he's more of a run stopper than a pass rusher.
Yeah.
He is a large human being.
Yes, he could be there at 47.
Somebody whispered to me, because he did not weigh in at the Senior Bowl, or at least there was no reported weigh for him at the Senior Bowl. I heard it was up there. I'm not going to give a number, and the number does not start with a 4, but you were closing in. I'll leave it at that.
He's big. He's big. But I would say at this point of free agency, which is kind of crazy to say because it's only Thursday of free agency week, but I think it's safe to say the first wave of free agency is now done.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
We're into the second wave, and here, maybe not the very top of the market guys that are still available, but for the guys that maybe are a little bit lower down on the list, still very, solid veteran players, you're going to start seeing a lot of these guys start agreeing to what I feel like most people would consider sort of be team-friendly deals, whether it's like a
short-term
one-year
too, yeah.
prove-it deals.
Bingo.
I mean, I believe we signed Ashawn Robinson in April last year.
Might have even been May. It was later in the process.
It was late, and I mean that ended up being a very strong contract for the Giants to get a very solid interior lineman. So I feel like at this point, it's gonna sort of be the front office is gonna have to see like what guys they could get at the reasonable deals at whatever position, and then whoever they can get at whatever the positions that are still needs, then they address the other positions, whether it's through the draft or veteran minimum signings. Like now is when you kind of, I don't want to use the term bargain hunting, but when that's kind of that is what
Sure.
you try to find the guys that you can get on cheap team-friendly deals now.
Yeah, right now you have the second wave where you'll still get a couple of decent deals, but then once you start getting into your point, April and stuff like that, that's when you start getting the guys that, maybe some of the veterans like, all right, well, I don't really want to go to OTAs and minicamp, so I'm going to sign with you in July and then maybe show up for camp. Other guys will be like, I don't want to deal with the first 2 weeks of training camp, so I'm going to sign with you on August 12th and play in one preseason game, and I'm good. Those are the older veterans. Other defensive tackles, if people like them, Chris Jenkins out of Michigan is a guy that's a day 2 pick. Michael Hall out of rival Ohio State. He's a quick, penetrating, upfield defensive tackle. And then I just love the guy's name, so I want to say it. Rook Ororo. That's actually it's Ororo. It's like Scooby-Doo. It's phenomenal.
It sounds like Scooby-Doo.
It's exactly what it is. And I looked at the pronunciation guide at the Combine. Had it exactly right.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's fantastic. It's a great name. And by the way, tune in the draft season. Tony Pauline tries to say the name. It's something. Tony's not great with the names. Half the reason I like doing draft season so much is because Tony with the names. Oh, it's phenomenal. You can't beat it. Matt, good stuff today, my friend.
Good stuff.
And stay tuned in to tomorrow's Big Blue Kickoff Live. I believe it's Datino and I. Sure, Lance and I, and one or the other. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we're going to talk about how this free agency class maybe now impacts what the Giants do next in free agency, or to the little references we've had today in the draft as well, and now with the Giants path is moving forward. And of course, we'll continue to take your calls right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. For Citak, I'm Schmeelk. Enjoy the new league year. We'll see you next time.